Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Junkmaster3. And first of all, I must apologize for the really bad lighting in here. The main reason is because, it's pretty much dark outside, and the light in here is just awful when you're making videos. So that's just what I want to say before starting this video. Now, on to the video. This is going to be the Horrorthon video and the top 5 of the month of October, which I haven't done yet. So I thought, well, let's just put both of those into the same video because I think I did the same thing previous year. So yeah. So first of all, I'm gonna go through all the films that I've watched, a little bit about how I thought of them, if I liked them or not, or like who directed it and stuff like that. Um, and basically, yeah, everyone, all of these are horror films, so yeah, that's how we get. And most of these I've not seen before, so that's really my main focus when I'm watching new horror films for the Horrorthon. So yeah, let's begin right away. The first film, day one, I watched one film, and that was actually the first four films are actually Lucio Fulci films. So if you want to know more about my opinions about each and every one of these, I did a separate video, I believe, where I ranked all of the Lucio Fulci horror films in sort of a list in a way. So anyway, first film I watched this horrorthon was The Sweet House of Horrors, which is part of the whole House type series or whatever you want to call it that was released in the late 80s in Italy. And I think he also did the one which was called The House of Clocks. Umberto Lenzi did like two or three of those, and I think maybe Claudio Fragasso did one. But I would say, I mean, this might shock you, but I'm a big fan of Lucio Fulci, but this is one of his weakest films in my opinion. So I gave that a 4 out of 10. Anyway, next move on to day number two, and I watched one film on day two. Day number two, that sounds stupid, but anyway, day two, I watched Sodoma's Ghost from 1988, another Fulci film, another made-for-TV Fulci film. And I know many people tend to think this is one of his worst, and I would say this is somewhere in the middle. I don't think this is as bad as some people make it out to be. I thought it was atmospheric, had really good looking like gore or practical effects, and the characters aren't really that annoying. I mean, that's actually what I thought about the Sweet House of Horrors. Most of the characters, the child actors in that was just atrocious, but the characters in Sodoma's Ghost were really interesting to me. And also, the one thing that I just didn't like about this film was the ending, which is just felt like, oh, this is so rushed. But anyway, I think this is still a very underrated Lucio Fulci film in general. So yeah, Sodoma's Ghost at day number two there. And then at day number three, I watched Voices from Beyond, which apparently was made in 91 but wasn't released until 1994. Um, Once again, this is another film that just feels a little bit forgotten in a way. This is sort of like this daughter who pretty much gets. She needs to find out who killed her father or like parents, I believe, and there's all kind of mystery to that. So I mean, I thought this is a really atmospheric, really a great soundtrack to this one as well. Yeah, I gave that a 6 out of 10. And by the way, I gave Sodoma's Ghost a 5 out of 10. Then the next one on day four, I watched his. I think this is considered as one of the better Giallo films out there. This is The Psychic from 1977. This was probably his third attempt at a Giallo film. Um, Even though I must say I much prefer Don't Torture a Duckling, which I'm probably still holding as my favorite Lucio Fulci film. And apparently Lucio Fulci, that's the film that he was most pleased with himself as well. But anyway, great Giallo, The Psychic. If you haven't seen it, check it out. 7 out of 10. Then at day five, I watched. This is a film by the company Necrostorm. The film is Hotel Inferno. I've been told there's, I think, two sequels to this one. I've been told that the second one is not really that good, and the third one is a little bit better. But this one had some really great gore effects. Overall, really nice, tense atmosphere to it. And it's only 1 hour and 20 minutes long, so it doesn't really feel that long either. And the gore effects are just top notch. That's the main reason why you want to watch this film to begin with. So, yeah, 7 out of 10, which might sound a little bit high, but I loved the gore so much I had to give it a 7 out of 10. Then I watched with a couple of friends actually. The film is called. This is maybe more of an action adventure comedy type film, but it still has some sort of horror elements to it, which doesn't really work in my opinion. But the film is Ice Spiders, which has to be one of the stupidest films I've seen in a long time involving spiders, because these spiders look horrible. This is a classic made for TV shit show, which is so incredibly stupid and bad that it actually gets really entertaining and funny. Especially the dialogue is just so cringe-worthy. I think this has Patrick Muldoon in it, who of course is probably most known for his role in Starship Troopers, and he plays such a douchebag in this, and his dialogue is just terrible. I don't blame the actor; I blame the people that were involved in the dialogue bit of this film. But anyway, entertaining, stupid, fun. 6 out of 10. Then I watched a lackluster. The next two films I actually watched on the same day, day 7. The first one I watched was The Brotherhood of Satan, which I thought was going to be a really interesting, tense, soothing, not soothing, but very tense and atmospheric satanistic horror film from the 70s. And of course, when it comes to the 70s horror films in general, they were just pumping out so many films that had something to do with Satan or Satanism in that decade. So there's plenty of films to pick from. This one was very lackluster to me. I did not enjoy this too much at all. This is really the definition of meh, so to say. So this is a 5 out of 10 for me. Then I just decided, well, I wanted to watch something that is slightly better, so I rewatched Henry: Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I would say is probably my favorite serial killer film of all time. So, yeah. Then on day 8, I watched Werewolves on Wheels, which is kind of funny actually. I mean, because this also has Satanists in it, and these like type of punks or like bikers that go around and with their motorcycles cruising around, and of course they encounter some weird satanistic cult that lives like in the woods in the middle of nowhere, which is just so weird and so strange. And they, of course, they sort of like drug them with like I think they put something in their drinks or something. They just assume it's ordinary alcohol. Yeah, this is such a weird film. I mean, I ended up giving this a 5 out of 10, even though I only gave it a 5 out of 10. I would still recommend this one weirdly, because this is definitely a film that I can see myself rewatching. That I'm probably gonna like even more the second time around when I watch it. So yeah. And then day 9, I watched. I think this is Jack Hill's very first horror film he directed, or maybe even the first film he directed at all. Like whatever. So the next film is Bloodbath from 1966. Only 62 minutes long. Really great, soothing, atmospheric type film in general. So yeah, Bloodbath, 6 out of 10. Then then I watched, I'm not Gollum, I'm not schizophrenic, just put that out there. The next one I watched was at day 10, I watched Monster A Go Go, which is really infamous for being one of the worst like films of all time. And oh god damn, this is such a mess of a film, because apparently the film was originally directed by Bill Rebane, who pretty much just abandoned the project like mid-through way or whatever. And for some reason, Herschel Gordon Lewis thought, well, let's just finish this film off. And yeah, finish it off by basically killing it off, because he completed the film, but the end result was just a big mess and really, really boring. And I even watched this in the middle of the day, and I even like almost fell asleep. So yeah, 1 out of 10 for that one. Day 11, I watched Sator from 2019, which I thought was going to be a really atmospheric type film. Don't get me wrong, it has some great cinematography, and the camera work is just great as well. And I mean, it has some atmosphere to it, but it's just unfortunate that the story doesn't really go along with the atmosphere in it, which is, yeah, that's just really a shame to me. So yeah, slightly disappointed on that one. So yeah, 4 out of 10 for Sator. Then I watched day 12. I watched two films. The first one I watched was Halloween at Aunt Ethel's. This is once again a stupid film, but it's still kind of funny in a very weird way. But if you watch it till the end credits, the end credits are just cringe-worthy. Oh my god, what were they thinking? If you've seen the film, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I mean, it does get a whole lot of hate, this film, and don't get me wrong, I can sort of see why, but this has such a stupidness to it that I just kind of like it. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for that one. Then I watched Tarantula, which apparently is the very first film where Clint Eastwood appears, and apparently he had like an uncredited role as a like war pilot, combat type man. Um, yeah, basically about like a tarantula that gets like really massive. Eventually, it just grows and grows and grows, and it attacks the city. Great 50s monster type film. 7 out of 10, really great. Then day 13. Oh god, maybe that was a sign. It's just day 13. I watched this film with some of my friends, and the film is Murder in Law. The main reason why I really wanted to watch this was because Joe Estevez is in this film, and he just looks so disinterested in the entire thing. I mean, and also, I mean, the thing is, he's probably the most likable or most like entertaining part of the whole film. The rest is just a really boring mess. I thought this was going to be a really interesting slasher type film, but oh god, what a disappointment! It just takes forever for it to get going. So 2 out of 10. Day 14, I watched two films. The first one is like a full moon type film. The film is Demonicus, which I had really low like hopes for because I've only heard bad things about it, except for one person that told me it's kind of funny. And that person is one of my good friends here on YouTube, Tim. Yeah, I think this is really hilarious, stupid, funny stuff. So probably one of the better full moon films I've seen in a long time. And full moon, I mean, I've always been that person that I prefer trauma over full moon, but full moon still has some sort of charm to some of the early 2000s, late 90s type films because some of them are just cringeworthy and funny to look at. So yeah, Demonicus, I gave that a 6 out of 10. Then I watched Halloween Night, which I've been on the hunt for ages. So I finally got it in my collection. I'm really glad I have it in the collection. Really an entertaining, underrated type film, in my opinion. The cover art is just great. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it has some flaws to it, but I would say it has enough gore and slasher type tropes to it that I really enjoyed, that just reminding me of old school slasher films from like the 70s and 80s. So, yeah, really entertaining. 6 out of 10. Then at day 15, I watched two films. The first one was Blood Feast 2, All You Can Eat, which is, I think this might have been one of the last films Herschel Gordon Lewis directed before he passed away. And this is such a weird thing as well because this was like released for like 40 years after the first one. Um, that's really strange to me, and I think this is probably one of his best films because oh my god, it just felt like someone thought, "We're Herschel Gordon Lewis. Why is he called the Godfather of Gore?" And it just felt like someone told him that, and then he's like, "Oh, I have to prove myself in some way," and he just delivered the goods in this film because oh my god, the gore effects are just entertaining, and it sort of have a weird comedic feeling to it as well. It sort of have a trauma feel to it, which is really great to me. So yeah, Blood Feast 2, All You Can Eat from 2002, 8 out of 10, entertaining as hell. Then I watched a Hicksploitation, is that what you call it? Basically about these rednecks going around killing people. This family because they are. This film is This film is called God's Bloody Acre from 1975, and yeah, it's sort of like a deliverance type thing. There's a bunch of people going around um, in this natural habitat or whatever, like with like forests and stuff, and these rednecks just don't like intruders, so they pretty much want to get rid of all of them. And of course, it's like a battle for life and death. So still entertaining. 6 out of 10. Then I watched Mind Killer from 1987. I thought the first half of this was so bad and so awkward because the main character is really the definition of awkwardness. Maybe it's just his dialogue or the way he's acting. I'm not really sure why, or maybe I'm not really sure if that was really meant to be for his character to be like that. But I would say the last part really makes up for it with some really great, entertaining creature and blood gore effects to it. Yeah, 6 out of 10 for that one. Then I watched a shot on video film, You could call this a Shadow Shadow because I really despise this film. Don't say that I think it's the worst one ever or anything like that, but the film is called Hell Roller from 1992. Basically about this crippled guy in a wheelchair who goes around killing people with I think one of his friends, and then he just gets. I mean, I can barely remember anything from this one because this is just all over the place, and there's so many filler scenes with strippers that he's just drawn out to maximum just to make the film be more than like 70 minutes long. So, oh yeah, this is bad. 3 out of 10 for that one. And then there's another one that I thought was really boring. Keep My Grave Open from 1977. 2 out of 10. Boring as hell. By the way, I won't talk too much about the rest of these films because otherwise I'll probably be here sitting here like all day long. So I'll just leave the end, not the end, but I will leave the link to the lists because I'm gonna leave the link to the Horrorthon list and the top 5 of the month list in the same underneath this video. So yeah. Then I watched day 19. I watched actually, let's see, 2 films. The next one on day 19 I watched was Half Past Midnight, which is a short type film with really great spatter and gore effects. 1988, Half Past Midnight. Damn. Day 19. I gave that a 6 out of 10. Then I watched, sort of ashamed that I have not seen any of these before, but Horror of Dracula from 1958 with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, of course, as the Count, and this is great, another 10. Then I watched Aunt Lee's Meat Pies, which I watched with friends, and I think all of us thought this was pretty hilarious, even though it does sort of like gets a little tedious after a while. I mean, it gets sort of boring in the last 10-15 minutes, but other than that, I think it's a fairly entertaining film. 6 out of 10. Then I watched The Nanny, which is maybe more of a mystery thriller type film, but I still liked it. This is with Bette Davis from the 60s, 7 out of 10. Then I watched another Dracula film, the one that is the next one in that series. Is this just called Count Dracula, Prince of Darkness, I believe? No, Dracula, Prince of Darkness. That's the original title. Great follow up to that one, even though they don't really have too much to do with each other. It's just sort of slowly hinted that they have some sort of connection to one another. But yeah, 8 out of 10, great film. Then I watched Rasputin, the Mad Monk. From 1966. I ended up giving this a 7 out of 10. The main reason I think is because I think that whole story to Rasputin is just, that's always been fascinating to me, about all the rumors and what happened with him and people trying to kill him off and they just didn't succeed. I thought that was really interesting, and just to see that on the screen is just really interesting to me. So yeah. Then I watched, this is an anthology film where I would say, let's see, is it 4 stories? Yeah. 2 of the stories were pretty lackluster and 2 of them were really great. The film is called Mania from 1986, directed by Paul Lynch, David M. Robertson, and John Shepard. 6 out of 10, still entertaining, somewhat forgotten anthology film, I believe. And then I watched The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which came out in 2017, sorry. Really creepy. This is definitely a film that I can see myself rewatching again, because I think I probably not forgot, but I think I probably missed out on some things in the film. Watched this on TV, thought it was great. Really wanted to get this on DVD as well. So yeah. Damn. Sorry for that. Damn. Where was I? Next one is The Intruder Within, which is a made-for-TV film from 1981. And this is really like a PG version of The Thing on an oil rig, basically. Which means made-for-TV basically means no gore effects, no blood or anything, but there's still some tension to it. 5 out of 10. I just wish it had more gore to it. But yeah, that was possible because it was a made-for-TV film. Then I watched Dracula Has Risen from the Grave from 1968. Not as good as the previous ones, but still, I would say it just feels like they slowly go downhill, these films. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I like most of these. It's just it feels like they get slightly worse for each film. But this is really good follow up to the previous one. 7 out of 10. Then I watched. This is actually. I'm not sure. I don't think this has too much to do with the Hammer Dracula films, but this is the Dracula film directed by Yes Franco, who is. This film is basically called Count Dracula, and this came out in the same year as Taste the Blood of Dracula, which I haven't seen yet. But this one has Christopher Lee, Herbert Lom, and Klaus Kinski in it. Klaus Kinski just basically plays himself in this, or at least it feels like it. He plays Renfield, I believe. 6 out of 10, still entertaining for a Jess Franco type film. Then I watched a slasher film from the 90s called Happy Hell Night. This had such an interesting premise to it, but the main characters in this, they are so forgettable and so unlikable that it just sort of kills the entire film. Still, the killer I thought was a really nice looking character. The way he looks, the facial expressions, and the makeup effects of him, that was just great in my opinion. But yeah, overall, it's sort of like a lackluster type slasher film. 5 out of 10. Oh my god! Speaking of gore, the next one is called Maleficia from 1998, directed by Antoine Pellissier. Because I think this is some French guy. Yeah, if you want to watch a gore film, this is definitely the film for you. Great. There's so much gore in this, and it's a low budget film. I wish I could get this on DVD or Blu-ray because I watched this on YouTube, and I was so surprised that this type of a gory film was on YouTube. And I think this might have had a limited release, and then it just sort of got pretty much impossible to get a hold of. So would love to buy that. So yeah, Maleficia, 1990, from 1998, I gave 8 out of 10. Then Killer Shrews, The Killer Shrews from 1959. Forgettable creature feature, really boring, really forgettable. 3 out of 10. Then I rewatched Night of the Demons, which I always watch during Halloween month. The original one, of course, from 1988, by Kevin Tenney. Yeah, love that film. Enough said. Been talking about that film so many times, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that one any more than that. But yeah, the next one I watched was Cannibal Mercenary from 1983 or 1988. I'm not too sure. I think it depends on what version you watch because I think there's two different versions. I watched the longer version, and this is really great Hong Kong action horror type film, which sort of have. I think this was that bit they were. I think they stole some sort of soundtrack from another film. Now I can't think of which film it was, but it's sort of funny, charming type thing. 6 out of 10. Then I watched Locker, the Necrophagus from 1986, which is is it a Belgian film or a Dutch film? I'm not too certain actually. I think it might have been. Okay, the director is from Belgium, but I think it might be a Dutch production. I'm not really sure about this whole thing, but one thing that I think is pretty funny with this is sort of like a shot on video film, and the funny thing about this is that the main character, like the serial killer guy that this film is basically about, the actor, he looks so much like Rich Evans from Red Letter Media, and I just kept thinking about that all the time. I thought that was really funny. So 6 out of 10, still a funny low budget type thing. Then I watched The Frighteners from 1996 by Peter Jackson, and I'm kind of ashamed of myself that I hadn't watched this before because I'm a big fan of Bad Taste and Brain Dead and all of those films. Meet the Feebles not so much, but I mean those other two I'm a big fan of. Yeah, The Frighteners I gave 8 out of 10. Then I rewatched The Cave from 2005, which that's such a nostalgic film for me because I watched that numerous of times on TV when it was fairly new, and I thought it was a great action horror type adventure film. Really like the creatures as well. It basically looks like the creatures from the Alien films, but like underneath, like inside of this cave system. Oh damn, I love that film. Then I watched. Unfortunately, the last film I watched was probably also one of the weakest or like the worst ones I watched. Cannibal Terror from 1980, directed by three directors, I believe. Where's the three? Yeah, three directors, and this is such a mess of a film because apparently the director, one of the directors, stole some footage from Jess Franco's Devil Hunter, and apparently Jess Franco was just so pissed off when he knew about this or got to know about this one, so I thought, well, this director just should not do anything else other than this anymore. So, or like shouldn't direct the film anymore. Um, yeah, this is bad. 2 out of 10. Don't watch this unless you really want to watch every single cannibal film out there. So, yeah. Now enough with the. That was all the films that I watched, which is yeah, basically watched 42 films. This horrorthon, so plenty of films. Now I'm gonna mention the top 5 of the month, which are the 5 films that I enjoy the most out of these that I had seen, not including the ones that I had already seen before. So yeah. At number 5 we have Blood Feast 2, All You Can Eat. Great sequel. I would say it's far superior to its predecessor. So yeah. Then at number 4, The Killing of Sacred Deer. I would say don't look up too much about this film before watching it, because otherwise I would say it sort of gets spoiled in a way. So, yeah, The Killing of Sacred Deer at number 4. Number 3, we have Maleficia, the gore, the French gore film that I mentioned. Great, great gore, great gore film. Then number 2, we have The Frighteners. If you like the previous Peter Jackson films, like the horror films he made, I think you'll probably also like The Frighteners and really like the cast in that one as well. And at number 1 we have Horror of Dracula from 1958, classic one, which I'm so glad I finally found and finally watched. So yeah, that there you have it. There you have the entire horror-thon and the entire top 5 of the month video thing in this video. So now I've been mumbling on for almost 30 minutes. So I'm just gonna end it at that. So hope you enjoyed, even though this got a little bit longer than I expected. So yeah, keep your eyes open for the next video, and see you next time. Bye bye.